So Grainbient is basically ambient, but with heavy use of granular processors and granular loopers, and the Instruo Arbhar is one of the best instruments for this available. I would like to share with you today a few examples and patching ideas with Arbhar, so let's start with a few sounds. An interesting feature of Arbhar is the follow mode that will follow the recording and will process the audio together with the recording, but it will also work without recording anything, and this will allow us to time stretch the audio, so to change its playback speed without changing its pitch. I have something recorded on the first buffer just as an example. I can scan through it.
This is an example of time stretching with Arbhar.
Now I can time stretch this manually or with CV control through the scan input.
This is an example of time stretching.
But I can also activate follow mode. So if I hold shift and capture and I turn the scan control to one of the extremes until I have here a light lit, now the scan knob will control the speed of playback, and with the strike button or trigger input we can start the playback. So all the way to the left it will be the fastest speed, and I can start lowering the speed.
This is an example of time stretching with Arbhar.
And I have, by the way, the grain length quite low, so quite short grains, and I can make this even slower.
This is an example of time stretching with Arbhar.
And this will work really nicely with something like a piano, for example. So on the second buffer, I have a piano recorded. And all we need to do, I will turn it all the way to the right so we get something really time stretched. And all we have to do is add some reverb. I will add the internal reverb of Arbhar just by sending offset voltage to the mod input. And let's have a listen to this. Now, Arbhar can also be used as a wavetable synth voice by taking the grain length all the way down, and Arbhar will use the recorded material as the wavetable. So I recorded a bit of psych into the first buffer. Just a few notes. And now if I take the grain length all the way down, it will change into wavetable mode. Just like this, and this voice will follow also 1 volt per octave, so I can play it, for example, with the key step that I have here. There is a volt per octave input on Arbhar. Now I'm playing it with the key step. Now the intensity control becomes a sort of a level control. And since it has a dedicated CV input, it's even a sort of a VCA. So here I have size also from Instruo that I can use. So I will use the gate also from the key step. And this will go, the CV output will go to the intensity control. And now you will see that we have a sort of an issue because the sustain level and actually the overall level of the envelope, what it will do, it will take the intensity control from the left more or less to the right. So we get eventually also no sound. So what we have to do, we have to attenuate this envelope first. So it will not take the intensity all the way to the right, but just to the center. So what I will do, I will send size first to quadrat here. And then I will use quadrat to attenuate the signal. So now basically the intensity control is opening only to the center, and we get our voice. Of course, also to this we can add the internal reverb. Now I can use sample and hold, for example, that with each note we will get a different wavetable position. So what I will do, I will use the attack output trigger or gate output from the size. So every time I trigger a size, it will trigger also the sample and hold. And now I will take the sample and hold and I will send it to the position, to the scan CV input, and now with each note we will get a different position of the wavetable. Now we can take this even further and send this with the internal reverb. So after the reverb and everything, through a filter, and have more control over the timbre. And actually I will send it through a Freak, through a filter, and also through the mimeophone to add even more delays and reverbs to the sound. So this will go to the mimeophone. And I will use, I will do something like this. I will send Arbhar to Freak, left and right. Again, this is after the reverb. So the filter will also process the reverb. And from Freak, this will go to the mimeophone. Let's open it a bit. And now, I can use Oct, for example, to open the filter. Freak has a CV input for each of the channels, so I can modulate the cutoff point for the left channel differently than the right channel, just to add even more stereo variation. Now, Arbor will work with recorded material, but it's also possible to have it process the incoming audio live thanks to its onset detection feature. Basically, there's another input that is normal to the main input, but it will detect when there's audio coming in and will start the recording process. This is great for when you want to record something without having to press the record button, but it's also great for live processing and granulizing of sounds. So here I have a sequence with the STO. I have it sequenced by the key step. This is now just a dry signal coming from Arbor. Right, so I have a sort of a sequence here going on that I can change and play, and I want Arbor to process this sound live. So first of all, I want to show you that the internal reverb of Arbor will also work on the dry signal. Again, now there is only the dry signal active. And if I send again offset, just constant voltage to the mod input, it will add the reverb. And this is added now to the dry signal, which is also quite cool. But now I will turn the wet all the way up, and I can set the onset detection to detect this sequence and to continuously record it, and by that also process it. Just one thing to keep in mind, this will work best when follow mode is active. Like I mentioned before, when in follow mode, the play head will follow the record head, playing back the recorded material. So here I have the sense control, and if I turn it up, it will sense the incoming signal, and you will see that it will start recording as soon as it senses it in the input. And I hope you can also see that this is the record head, and you can see that the play head is following the recording head. This is the follow mode again, so it will not only record, but it will also follow the recording and will process and granulize the sound. So now if I make changes to the sound, we will be able to hear it live. Right, so now it will always record as long as there is something coming in the input. It will capture it, it will record it and process it in the same time. So now basically what we have here is a live granular processor. right? Now, another thing we can do, we can add some modulation to the grain size. So again, this will change the processing. And what I will do, I will use the trigger output. So here there is a trigger output that will output a trigger whenever a grain is being generated. So now the intensity is all the way up, so it's quite often, but I hope you can see the light here. So this will fire out a trigger whenever a grain is being generated. So I can use this, for example, to trigger sample and hold. Right, so now the sample and hold, you can see the light here, is being triggered together with the generation of grains or with the seeding of grains. And now I can use this sample and hold to modulate, for example, the grain size. So with each grain, we get a different length or different grain size. And again, I can change the sound live. Something I really like doing is recording different notes on each of the buffers, scanning through the buffers, and even recording and overdubbing on top. So Arbhar has 6 buffers we can record to and scan through. So I have on each buffer a different note recorded. This is one. Right? And now the last buffer position or layer position is the omega layer, which allows us to scan through all the 6 layers with the scan knob. So if I go all the way to the left, it will be the first layer or the first buffer on the left, and then I can scan through this buffer, and this moves directly to the next one, and so on. Like this, I can scan through the different notes, basically in this case. So you can use something like Oct to do this. So if I use, for example, one of the slower outputs to the scan input, so now it will scan through the buffers, but I can also use, for example, sample and hold. I will use the slew output to modulate the time, the rate of this LFO, just so it's a bit more moving. Now I have plats going to the, in this case I will connect it to the onset input, and I can use again the onset detection to record onto what's going on already, but not only record but also overdub. So here there is the overdub control, the overdub level that I can raise, and I will also raise the onset detection, which means that now I can play plats and it will directly record on the different buffers depending where it is, and it will overdub on top. So it will not delete what's already there, but it will record on top of it. So let's have a listen to this. Right, so it recorded on top. Depending on which buffer was active at the moment, of course I can change also the length of the grains. And their intensity. And now I can add again reverb, and this reverb input, so again the Arbhar has a built-in reverb, and through the mod input you can activate this reverb. It has also a delay, but this is something you change. On the back of the module I have it set to reverb, so positive voltage will activate the reverb, but will still let the dry signal through, just like we've seen before. But negative voltage will activate the reverb and will output only the wet signal, so only the affected signal from the reverb, which can also be quite interesting. So again, we have different notes and also something recorded on top. And it's scanning through all of those buffers, all of those notes. I can continue recording. And again, depending on where it lands here with the layers, it will record on the different layers. And you can see why Arbhar is a perfect tool, a perfect instrument for ambient and grainbient, and there are so many more things we can do with it. I will actually show you a few more examples, but without me talking. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Cheers!